a space where we don't just report global events, we interrogate the power behind them, and we do it from an African point of view. Tonight, I want to talk about power, not military power, not economic power, but the kind of power that decides whose pain is believed, whose future is imagined, and whose stories shape the world. Tonight, we're talking about culture and why Africa's stories matter now more than ever. For decades, geopolitics has been discussed as if culture were an afterthought. Borders, trade deals, sanctions, weapons, oil, data. But history tells us something different. Before a nation is conquered economically, it is conquered narratively. Before resources are extracted, stories are distorted. Before power is centralized elsewhere, identity is weakened at home. Culture is not soft power, it is foundational power. And Africa has been locked out of it for far too long. Africa has often been spoken about, but rarely spoken with. Its conflict simplified, its innovations ignored, its people reduced to stereotypes or sympathy. When Africa appears in global media, it is too often framed as a problem to be solved, not a perspective to be heard. That absence has consequences. Because stories don't just reflect reality, they shape policy. They influence who gets funded, who gets sanctioned, who gets forgiven, who gets ignored. If Africa's stories are told inaccurately, then Africa's interests are negotiated unfairly. This is geopolitics. We are living in a moment of global rebirth. Western dominance is being questioned. The global south is asserting itself. Old powers are recalculating. New alliances are forming. And in this moment, culture has returned to the center of global power. Who defines democracy? Who defines development? Who defines legitimacy? Who gets to define Africa? Which is most important? Again, I ask, who gets to define Africa? African music is global. African fashion is influential. African tech ecosystems are emerging. African youth are digitally connected and culturally confident. Yet the narrative has not caught up. Africa is still described in the language of the past while actively shaping the future. That disconnect, my friend, is dangerous. Very dangerous. Because when Africa's stories are not told by Africans, I repeat, when Africa's stories, when Africa's stories are not told by Africans, others will tell them instead in ways that serve their interest, not Africa's truth. Colonialism was justified with stories. Extraction was normalized with stories. Intervention was sanitized with stories. Today, the tools have changed. Algorithms instead of missionaries, media framing instead of textbooks, digital platforms instead of empires. But the risk remains the same. This is why African storytelling is no longer cultural. It's strategic. It is strategic. Who tells Africa's stories will influence investment, diplomacy, technology, migration, and trust. Culture now sits at the center of global power, and Africa cannot afford to be silent. That is what the bold angle exists to do. not to romanticize Africa, not to deny its challenges, but to contextualize them with clarity, confidence, and courage. To say Africa is thinking, yes, to say Africa is thinking, Africa is negotiating, Africa is deciding, and Africa deserves to speak for itself. Africa deserves to speak for itself. Culture is not decoration, it's direction. Culture is not decoration, it's direction. And in a multipolar world, Africa's stories are no longer peripheral, they are central. And that's the truth. I am Chioma Lina, and this is the Bold Angle. Thank you once again. You join us again, and please do not forget to subscribe. The reason is so that every time we come on, you will always get a notification. We are telling it. We're telling it. The truth. The truth. Again, I'm Chioma Lina, and this is the Bold Angle. Thank you.